Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to look at how to change a habit based on Joe Dispenza's works. This video will give you a scientifically backed way to form new habits in a way that, if sincerely committed to and followed, doesn't demand struggle or extraordinary willpower. Changing habits is much easier once you know how the process actually works. To change a habit, you first need to understand what a habit is. A habit is a set of automatic, unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotional reactions that develop through repetition. It is something you've done so many times that your body now knows how to do it better than your mind. These patterns operate below the level of awareness, which means that they are often running the show even when you think you're making conscious decisions. You may believe that you are in control, but in truth, you're often acting from a memorized version of the past. The process of change requires not only new choices, but also a new relationship to the present moment. In the framework outlined by Joe Dispenza, every habit is anchored in a cycle that involves how you think, how you act, and how you feel. The more you think in the same ways, act in the same ways, and feel the same feelings, the more you condition your body into a specific state. Eventually, the body becomes the mind. This means that your physical reactions, emotional states, and thought patterns begin to reinforce one another, making it increasingly difficult to break free. The body becomes addicted to familiar emotional patterns and resists anything that would threaten the status quo, even if that status quo is uncomfortable or limiting. Because of this, change can't happen unless you break the pattern of being yourself. This doesn't mean abandoning who you are, but rather stepping outside the familiar and rehearsed identity that you've repeated day after day. This identity is formed by your neural networks, chemical states, and subconscious programming. As touched upon, to shift it, you need to become conscious of your unconscious self. This begins by observing your internal world without judgment, just noticing what you think, how you act, and how you feel, especially in the situations where your habits usually take over. Awareness is the first step. Without awareness, you're a passenger in your own life. You need to observe how this plays out in your own experience, to see how you react in a similar manner in the same type of situation over and over again. How the same kinds of thoughts loop inside the mind, especially when you experience some form of dissatisfaction. With awareness, you can begin to make new choices. These choices require energy. Every time you resist the pull of an old habit, you are redirecting energy that has been routed through the same circuit for years. This takes effort, and it can feel uncomfortable, but it is a necessary discomfort. The brain and body resist the unknown, not because it's dangerous, but because it's unfamiliar. However, it's only by stepping into the unfamiliar that real change becomes possible. To break a habit, you have to stop thinking the same thoughts that led to it. Thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body. Together, they create a state of being. When you think a thought like, "I'm not good enough," and then feel sadness or frustration in your body, you are reinforcing that belief on both the mental and emotional levels. The body begins to crave the chemical cocktail associated with those feelings, and you become conditioned to repeat the thought in order to feel the feeling again. This is why it can feel like you're addicted to negative states. They have become part of your identity. Meditation and mindfulness are two of the most effective ways to interrupt this cycle. Meditation allows you to disconnect from your external environment, your familiar routines, and your emotional triggers. In meditation, you are given the opportunity to observe the thoughts and feelings that usually run automatically, and with consistent practice, you can begin to see them as patterns rather than truths. This creates the space needed to install something new. When you enter a meditative state, especially when using the methods outlined by Dispenza, you shift your brainwaves from the high beta state associated with stress and reaction to slower waves like alpha and theta, which are more conducive to learning, imagination, and rewiring. In these slower states, the analytical mind loosens its grip, and you gain access to the subconscious mind, where long-term habits are stored. This is the window through which real change can occur. Mindfulness is a powerful tool in this process because it trains you to become an observer of your internal state without immediately reacting to it. When you practice mindfulness, you are developing the ability to witness a thought or emotional impulse as it arises, rather than automatically following where it leads. This moment of observation creates a window for choice. Instead of moving unconsciously into the same routine or reaction, you begin to notice the pattern as it's happening. That awareness alone disrupts the cycle. With consistent mindfulness, your attention becomes more stable, your reactions more measured, and your capacity to change a habit from the inside out becomes stronger. As you can see, the first crucial step is to create a distance between your experiences and your reactions to them. Even if you can't help but get triggered into the same old habits, you can learn to stay present. You can learn to notice when you forget yourself and get completely lost in reaction. One of the most important aspects of breaking a habit is, in other words, recognizing the moment you've been triggered. There is always a space between the trigger and the reaction. In that space, there is a choice. Presence in this context means being so aware of your internal state that you can interrupt the automatic response before it gains momentum. At first, this may happen only after the fact. You may realize after the habit has run its course that you were not present. But over time, the moment of awareness comes earlier. Eventually, it comes in real time, and that's when you have leverage. Another important aspect is that, to replace a habit, you can't just stop doing something. You must start doing something else. The brain doesn't function well in a vacuum. If you only try to stop an old behavior without installing a new one, the pull of the familiar will eventually draw you back. You need to rehearse a new state of being, again and again, until your body begins to know it as well as your mind does. This is not about faking or forcing anything. It is about aligning your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions with the future you want to live. Visualization can play a key role in this. By mentally rehearsing a new way of being, how you want to think, how you want to act, and how you want to feel, you are activating the same neural circuits that would fire if you were actually doing those things. The brain does not distinguish much between a real experience and a vividly imagined one, especially when that imagination is accompanied by strong emotion. Dispenza emphasizes that when you imagine your future self with sensory richness and emotional intensity, you begin to neurologically and chemically condition your body to that future. Over time, these mental rehearsals create new neural pathways and biological feedback loops that prime you for different behavior. One exercise he teaches is to review the day's events before going to sleep and mentally revise the situations where you didn't respond as your best self would have. In this way, you train the brain to install a new pattern, reinforcing the identity of the person you are becoming, not by punishment, but by redoing the event from the lens of awareness and reconditioning the nervous system to that version of you. Emotion is what conditions the body. To change a habit, you need to break the emotional agreement you've made with it. For example, if a habit is tied to the feeling of stress or boredom or resentment, you must teach the body how to feel something else in those moments. This doesn't mean suppressing or bypassing emotions. It means noticing them, allowing them to exist without feeding them, and choosing a new emotional state to install in their place. Gratitude, calm, inspiration. These are not just pleasant feelings. They are signals that tell the body it is safe to change. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, means that you are never stuck. You may have thought the same way for 20 years, but with focused attention and repeated experience, you can build entirely new patterns in a matter of weeks. The key is consistency. Change is not a one-time decision. It is a daily practice. Each day you choose to think and act differently. Every time you choose to break your habitual patterns, you are installing a new version of yourself. Over time, the new becomes familiar, and the familiar becomes automatic. This is how a habit is formed, but this time, one that you've chosen. As touched upon, the hardest part of change is not deciding what to do. It is overcoming the internal resistance that arises when you begin to do it. The old self fights to survive. It uses your thoughts, your emotions, and even your body to convince you to stay the same. You may hear the voice that says it won't work, that you've tried before, that it's too hard. This voice is not a rational observer. It is a survival mechanism. It is trying to keep you in the known, even if the known is suffering. And you don't have to do anything but stay present and notice. That is the only minimum requirement. With time, you will start breaking the identification with the voice in the head that always talks to itself, and whose opinions most people give way too much weight to. And with this, it becomes easier to stop allowing the voice to talk you out of breaking habits. And when that happens, it becomes gradually easier to go against the discomfort of breaking habits. Here again, you are reminded of the importance of observing yourself. You need to pay attention to when the voice starts telling you why this particular assignment should be postponed till tomorrow, why you shouldn't go to the gym today, or why you should pick up that bag of snacks at the grocery store. Because there are always reasons to be found if you look for them. This is not about condemning certain choices or about forcing new ones. Again, the first step is awareness. Then come clear intentions. You need to be as clear as possible about the choices you wish to make and the habit you wish to cultivate. Many people fail simply because they are too vague about what they actually want, which makes the job much easier for the voice that tries to convince them to stay in the known. And then you also have to be ready to forgive yourself when you still, in spite of all this, slip back into old habits. However, it is when you combine a clear intention with an elevated emotion, like joy, love, or empowerment, that your ability to change truly becomes amplified. What you do is create a coherent signal that can override the noise of the old self. This coherence is measurable in both the brain and the heart. To cultivate an emotional state, you may begin by slowing your breath and shifting your attention from thinking to feeling. Instead of waiting for something external to trigger the feeling, you generate it intentionally from within. Dispenza teaches that gratitude, for example, is one of the most powerful elevated emotions because it signals to the body that the event you are envisioning has already occurred. You can start by recalling a time when you truly felt gratitude, love, or joy, and then amplify that feeling while holding the image of your new future in mind. Practicing this daily helps train your nervous system to embrace the future before it happens, making it more likely that you will act, think, and feel in alignment with it. Here we used gratitude as an example, but the important point is that we can change our emotional state by using our imagination and choosing our thoughts. What thoughts we choose to believe in, and what thoughts to give nourishment to. Realize clearly that any new habit starts in the mind. Going against the discomfort of doing something differently starts by going against the discomfort of thinking differently. And if you are like most people, you have trained your brain to run on autopilot most of the time, even at points where just a moment of conscious reflection would reveal that the autopilot is taking you in an unwanted direction. You have to be prepared for this discomfort, since our survival programming is geared toward keeping us in the known. But when you start to truly see that what your mind is initially telling you about a situation is not the absolute truth, and that you can change your emotional state by changing your thinking without lying to yourself, this change will become easier, especially when you start learning how to use positive emotions to drive you consciously. There is also the matter of timing. The brain is most malleable during specific times of the day. When you wake up in the morning and when you go to sleep at night, your brain is naturally closer to the alpha and theta states, which makes it more open to suggestion and rewiring. These are ideal moments to engage in meditation, visualization, or any practice that installs a new way of being. You don't need hours, you need consistency. 10 to 20 minutes of focused practice can shift your trajectory when done daily. You also need to manage your environment. The people you interact with, the places you go, and the routines you follow all reinforce who you think you are. If your environment constantly reminds you of the old self, it becomes harder to change. This doesn't mean you must isolate yourself, but it does mean becoming intentional about your surroundings. Make space for the new self to emerge. That could mean organizing your home differently, limiting exposure to negative input, or simply taking a different route to work. Small changes in the outer world support larger changes in the inner one. Tracking progress can be helpful, but not in the form of self-judgment. Notice when you succeed. Acknowledge when you interrupt an old habit. Celebrate the moment you respond differently. These small wins accumulate. The brain learns through experience. Each time you make a new choice and survive, your body learns that it is safe to let go of the past. This safety becomes the foundation for new behavior. You don't have to fix everything at once. The nervous system responds better to small, consistent shifts than to overwhelming demands. Pick one habit that no longer serves you. Observe it. Interrupt it. Replace it. Reinforce the new behavior with thought, with feeling, and with action. Then repeat. Over time, this single shift will create ripple effects across your entire way of being. Tell yourself that you don't have to change everything at once, that it's okay to do this at a pace that is comfortable for you. Slow, deliberate progress is most likely to produce lasting change, as long as you are as honest as possible with yourself about what you are doing and where it is leading. Changing a habit is not about willpower in the traditional sense. It is about awareness, consistency, and alignment. When your inner world becomes more real than the outer one, your biology begins to follow. The brain reorganizes itself to reflect your new focus. The body adapts to your new emotional baseline. The world around you begins to mirror your inner state. This is not a theory. It is how systems function. You are a system. And systems respond to patterns. What was once automatic can be made conscious. What was once unconscious can be reprogrammed. You are not destined to repeat your past. You are capable of choosing again, and every choice creates a signal that moves you toward a different future. You don't need to change everything overnight. You need to begin. And once you begin, you need to continue. Not perfectly, but intentionally. Each new repetition lays down the foundation of a new habit. Each time you return to presence, you reclaim your power to choose. In summary, changing a habit is not about forcing yourself to behave differently through discipline or guilt. It's about becoming deeply aware of how your current habits operate, how they are wired into your thoughts, actions, and emotions, and learning how to interrupt and redirect those patterns over time. With the help of meditation, mindfulness, visualization, and emotional self-regulation, you can gradually shift your internal state and teach both your brain and body a new way of being. Every time you catch yourself, pause, and choose differently, you are laying down the neurological and emotional foundation for lasting change. The process isn't about perfection, it's about presence. By making new choices, feeling your way into your future, and staying consistent, you slowly rewire your inner world. And as that happens, your outer life begins to change too. Finally, we've talked a lot about the importance of awareness in this video. This is because awareness is the foundation for all real change. You need to become aware of how you habitually respond to your experiences, whether those responses happen in your mind, in your words, or in your actions. You need to observe how these responses shape your emotional life and reinforce the very patterns you're trying to break. Most importantly, you need to see the mechanism by which the mind convinces you to go against your deeper intentions, often under the guise of permission, exception, or temporary relief. Even when you know better, it can still sound persuasive. Think about it. Think about how much suffering and how many destructive choices really start in your thinking. Noticing this is not a sign of failure. It's a sign that you are witnessing the exact process that must be brought into the light of conscious choice. In other words, you need to become conscious and intentional about your inner life first. If you want to build a new habit, the place to begin is not in action, but in attention. To change the external, you must first work with the internal. That means learning to sit with your discomfort instead of reacting to it, recognizing the voice in your head for what it is, a conditioned narrative, and choosing not to follow it without questioning it. It means understanding that your emotional state is not simply a reaction to what's happening, but often a rehearsal of old beliefs you've practiced for years. And it means remembering again and again that you are not your past unless you continue to repeat it. This is what Dispenza means when he talks about breaking the habit of being yourself. You are not trying to become someone else. You are learning to stop unconsciously rehearsing an outdated version of who you think you are. When you stop acting from the familiar emotions of the past and instead start thinking, acting, and feeling from the point of your chosen future, you are no longer living in survival. You are no longer repeating, you are creating. This last statement cuts to the core of what this fundamental mindset shift is about. One path is familiar, and even if it might be fraught with suffering, it also offers comfort. But it keeps you stuck in the past. The other path means stepping out of your comfort zone. It means that your system will signal danger because you are stepping into the unknown. And it means that your mind will try to talk you out of it. But it also means infusing your life with a sense of aliveness. It means that instead of stagnation and the slow decay that comes with it, you get the chance to grow and evolve daily, and that many of your perceived limitations will dissolve as they reveal themselves to be nothing but figments of the imagination. So as you move forward, keep this simple structure in mind. Begin with awareness. From that awareness, establish a clear intention. Support that intention with an elevated emotion that matches the future you want to live. Practice this combination daily, whether through meditation, visualization, reflection, or simply pausing before you act. Learn to catch yourself when you forget, and instead of falling into judgment, return to the present moment and begin again. This is the real work, not forcing change, but becoming so aware that the old patterns can no longer run without your permission. If you do this consistently, you will reach a point where your body no longer reacts the way it used to, your thoughts no longer lead you down the same path, and your emotions begin to reflect the future rather than the past. You'll still make mistakes, you'll still forget sometimes. But over time, those slips won't define you anymore. What will define you is your capacity to choose. Because in the end, that's what a habit is. A choice repeated until it becomes automatic. And the good news is, you now know how to make new ones. You've now reached the end of the video. Remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for your time.